Imagine surviving Nazi bullets only to get sold out by the guy in your own foxhole. Some say American soldiers snitched on their Jewish brothers, handing them straight to the Germans. So what really happened to those snitches? Let's break it down. Prejudice inside the ranks. Most Jewish men who joined the US Army came from cities. When they were mixed in with recruits from farm towns and rural areas, many of them heard slurs for the first time. Some were called names like Keek or Jew boy. A few were even told that Jews had horns or were weaker than other men. The talk was not just names. Some soldiers said that Jews had caused the war and were dodging the fighting to stay safe. These were the same ideas that groups back home had pushed before the war when they blamed Jews for pulling the country into it. It went further in a few units. One veteran said his platoon mates would not share a tent with him. Another said his own platoon leader led the bullying and a friend had to step in to stop it. If a Jewish soldier made a small mistake, it got tagged as dirty Jew behavior, while the same slip from another man passed without a word. So a lot of these men hid who they were. Some tucked away their prayer books, their stars of David, and the small mezuzahs they carried so no one would know. In a shared foxhole, a talk about the war could turn cold in a second. Combat did change some of this, because men who bleed next to each other tend to drop the hate. But the pressure stayed in the back of the mind, and it would matter far more the moment these men were captured. The tags that could get you killed. Every American wore 2 dog tags, and on them was a letter for religion. For a Jewish soldier, that letter was an H for Hebrew, which the army later switched to J in the early 1950s. In training, it meant nothing. In German hands, it could mean a worse camp, harder labor, or worse. So, before capture, many Jewish soldiers tried to get rid of that letter. Some swapped tags with a non-Jewish buddy, or threw their own away and took on a P for Protestant or a C for Catholic. The whole plan rested on trust. You were handing your life to the man in the next foxhole. Most of the time it worked. Plenty of non-Jewish soldiers took the swap, knowing full well the danger they were taking on, but not always. Some men said no, out of fear of getting caught with an extra set of tags, or out of plain dislike. In a prison camp, that no had weight. A Jewish prisoner might turn to a man he had known for months and get a cold shoulder. Sometimes a soldier under pressure would let a detail slip in front of the guards without ever pointing a finger. He did not turn his buddy in, but now the German knew anyway. A few Jewish prisoners later said the heaviest pressure in the camp came from certain fellow Americans, not from the guards. These are the moments that sit closest to the story in the title. A Jewish soldier left out in the open by one of his own, and in one camp, that pressure helped the Germans get exactly what they wanted. The roll call at Bad Orb. In the freezing last weeks of January 1945, inside a crowded camp called Stalag Nix B, also known as Bad Orb, the German commanders barked out a chilling order. Every Jewish American prisoner was to step forward. Around 130 men identified themselves and were marched off to separate barracks. But the Germans had a number in their heads, and 130 was not enough, so they went hunting. To hit their quota, they grabbed men who simply looked Jewish, men with Jewish-sounding last names, and troublemakers the guards already wanted gone. This is where the strain showed. Starving, exhausted, and terrified, the American prisoners did not all stand as one wall. In the chaos, some stayed silent. Some could not protect a comrade even if they wanted to. The unified front cracked. On February 8, around 350 American prisoners were crammed onto trains and shipped to a place called Berger an der Elster, a brutal subcamp tied to the infamous Buchenwald. There, alongside concentration camp inmates, they were driven into the earth as slaves, digging tunnels for an underground fuel factory in punishing, deadly conditions. The work was savage: dust, explosives, beatings, almost no food. Many of these young men wasted away from hunger and disease before freedom ever came. This was the rare time the Nazis pulled off the very thing they wanted, peeling Jewish Americans away from the herd. It worked partly because the prisoners, ground down to nothing, could not all hold the line. It is the darkest chapter in this whole story, but it is only half of it, because in another camp, just days earlier, one man drew a very different line in the snow. "We are all Jews here." The camp was Stalag Nix A in Ziegenhain, and the date was January 27, 1945. The German commandant gave the same order, snarling that every Jewish prisoner was to report alone the next morning. Standing as the top American sergeant over roughly 292 men was a quiet soldier from Tennessee named Roddy Edmonds. He had a different plan. When morning broke, Edmonds did not send the Jewish men out alone. He ordered every single American to fall in and stand together. The commandant stormed up, furious, shouting that they could not all possibly be Jews. Edmonds looked him dead in the eye and said, "We are all Jews here." The German pressed a pistol straight to Edmonds' head. The sergeant did not flinch. He warned that if the Germans wanted to shoot the Jews, they would have to shoot every last man standing there, and that there would be a reckoning for it after the war. The commandant, staring at a wall of defiant prisoners, backed down. The order died right there in the cold. That single stand is believed to have saved around 200 Jewish American soldiers from a fate like Berger. Edmunds went home, stayed silent about it, and died in 1985 with no medal at all. Then his son found his diaries. In 2015, Yad Vashem named him righteous among the nations, the only US soldier ever given that honor. And in March 2026, he was finally awarded the Medal of Honor. His stand was not a one-off across the camps. The survival rate for American POWs in German hands sat near 99%, and a big reason was men shielding men. So who actually snitched? So now the real question. Go looking through the records for the American who handed his Jewish comrades to the Nazis, the snitch the title promises, and a strange thing happens. You barely find him. There is no documented pattern of US soldiers turning Jews over to the enemy. The friction was real, the dog tag refusals were real, and Berger was a true horror. But betrayal to the Germans as a habit, it is almost nowhere in the history. What you find instead flips the whole story on its head. The court-martials of Jewish soldiers point the other way entirely. Take Al Levy, court-martialed in 1943 after he spoke out against the cruel treatment of black soldiers. Civil rights groups called it anti-Semitism, and he was quietly released by the war's end. Or Hector Goldman, dragged into a court-martial for fraternizing with the enemy, when the enemy was a group of starving Jewish concentration camp survivors he was feeding. Then there were the Ritchie Boys, around 20 German-speaking Jewish refugees who joined the US Army and pulled intelligence out of captured Germans that saved countless Allied lives. And it was American troops, Jewish and not, who tore open the gates of the Nazi camps and forced the world to look. So here is the verdict. American soldiers snitching on Jews to the Nazis is not the buried scandal the title hints at. The ugliness that existed was prejudice from within, and a system that sometimes punished the wrong men. The lasting picture is a sergeant with a gun to his head saying 4 words, not a traitor at the fence line. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.